Welcome to 52 Authors, 52 Weeks, Season 3. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator. Each week, I sit down with a different author to explore what lies behind the pages. Growth, purpose, finding your voice. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another amazing episode of 52 Authors, 52 Weeks. Today, I am joined by author, healthcare professional, Keisha Wilson, author of By Her Side, A Daughter's Guide to Caregiving with Faith and Love. And I'm pretty sure I got a signed copy. Let me look at my book. If it's not signed, I'm gonna bring mine to the AAPC conference
Yes.
so you can sign it.
Oh, I will. And do you have a soft cover, hardcover?
It's a soft cover.
Oh, so I'll bring you a hardcover.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And before we get into your amazing story and journey, why don't you tell our listening, viewing audience a little bit about you and your background and what you do
Okay. Thank
outside
you.
of being a caregiver?
Outside of the caregiving. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Campbell, for having me on. As I was telling her behind the scenes, I've admired this podcast for a long time. So that I'm able to come on and speak about my journey is awesome. So again, my name is Keisha Wilson. So I've been in healthcare now for almost, this year actually makes about 30 years. People always like question and laugh when I say that. And I was like, yeah, I dye my hair a lot. You know, the gray hairs sometimes will peek out and then you'll be like, oh, okay. But I did start young. I did start when I was a teenager. And currently my role is a healthcare consultant. I am the founder of KW Advanced Consulting. And I've worked in the healthcare space. As I said, I started as a teenager, did front desk. I actually went to school to be a social worker. And I got into a master's program for social work and I did an about face and went into coding instead. So that's where, like, I guess the soft skills and certain things that we'll talk about in the book kind of comes about. And I did coding, auditing. I was a medical compliance manager, interim director. And then I had a friend who was like, oh, why don't you bet on yourself and do this on your own? And I did, and I love it. So I do audit education. I teach medical coding under KW Advanced Consultant AAPC. I write coding articles. I speak at conferences. Anything compliance, risk adjustment, evaluation, just anything coding. I love it. So that is about me. Oh, no, I lied. Okay. And I do sit on a few boards of an outpatient mental health clinic, telehealth. I'm chairing a telehealth committee. I sit on a board of the HIM department in SNHU, and then a nursing one that sends nursing students to school there in California. So that is Keisha in a nutshell.
I love that. So you stay busy, right? So I laughed when you talked about the gray hair because I don't color my hair because I wear other hair. But people often say to me, oh my God, you're 53. You don't look 53. And I think it's because I have been very intentional about how I navigate life, how I care for myself. Do I get it right all the time? No. But I have been very intentional about a lot of things. And the older I become, I'm even more intentional. And people often laugh when I say this, but part of that, I think intentionality is that I really kind of protect my personal space. So I'll tell you something funny. You're going to be like, what? So I think the first time we met in person was at the AAPC conference that was last year. I was a few months after post-op from ankle surgery. So I was still kind of like struggling to get around a little bit.
And
But
you have a beautiful like cherry, like a reddish suit. I remember it.
yes, yes. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. So now I got to figure out what I'm gonna wear this year, so I don't have the same color on. I got suits in all different types of colors, but I think I know what I'm gonna wear this year. But when I saw everybody, I was a little bit overwhelmed by the number of people who came up to me and said, "Oh my God, I've been following you for so long." And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not really a shy person, but I'm also very humble. And so for all those people to be like, "Oh my gosh," I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like,
Right, was
yeah,
what was it?
me, right? I literally, and you laugh at this, but even though I'm on YouTube and all of that, outside of doing all those things, I literally am a person who just likes to try to protect her space.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
like
that's
that.
important. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I was one of those people. I was like, "Oh my goodness, can I get a picture?" Because I
And
just loved it. Yes,
and
and
I was putting the name to the face, right? Because you see each other on social media, but you haven't
yeah,
really seen each other face to
in
face.
person, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love conferences. So I'm counting down till
Yes.
I can see you again and bring a book.
Yes, because I have to get my book signed and all of my books. So what I'll do is I will gift this one to somebody else. But
Um,
in my books, I have a little stamp
I like that.
because it's my book. But I got about 800 books on my bookshelf, so all of them have the stamp in them.
Yeah,
And every now and then I'll go through them to make sure they have the stamp. Because sometimes people will come over and want to borrow a book. I'm like, I need my book back.
you need a book back. Yes.
Yes.
I'm like now kind of building it back because when we lost the house like 2 years ago, they demolished everything in it. And the bookshelf, I had like three bookshelves of books. I love books. So I'm
Mm,
now slowly building it back one by
yeah.
one.
One by one. It's just a day-to-day process, right?
Yes.
So let's get into the book and listen, everybody, you know the deal. We're not going to tell you everything that's in the book. We want you to get your own copy. And just because I'm nosy, is
That
this
is my mom.
okay?
Yeah, she's one of those women who she doesn't like cameras, doesn't like taking photos. I kind of got her into taking photos now because I'm like, these are memories. But she hates photos, so I wanted to incorporate her, but I know she wouldn't want her face on it. So that was like the first photo that came to my mind when I wrote the book, or God gave me the idea about the book. And it's actually my sister. So I took the photo of them, and I wanted to incorporate her as well too. We'll talk about it as well, but I write it in the book. But she was actually pregnant at the time, so there was a lot she couldn't physically be there for. But I still wanted to include her because we made decisions together. So
I love that. All right. So we got to be careful here that we don't tell them everything in the book, but let's just start by setting the stage about the rationale um, behind the book, what led you to write the book, and just give them the Cliff Notes version because we want them to get their own copy and read about the journey. And believe it or not, I didn't know about your journey. I think it was Natasha, somebody who we know in common, who actually told me what happened. So I had no, this is how I don't say closed off I am. I didn't even know. And so when I found out, I was like, wow, all that happened to her and she's still walking around here smiling.
all the time, I know. I feel like one is a blessing to wake up every day because every day someone's not waking up. So despite what happens, I always am grateful for another opportunity. And and it wasn't just you. I think for a while I was keeping that part quiet. I was a little nervous to let people in. I didn't want people to feel sympathy, and I know my mom is private. So I had to ask her permission before. But I always say God has placed this on my heart for years. And so I won't give you guys all of it, but snippet is so my mom in 2018, she was a nurse, she was an RN, and an alcoholic patient had kicked her in the head. So she got post concussion syndrome from that, along with like other issues that have medical issues that happen, like with her back and spine and stuff from that injury because she kind of flew back into a wall. And then in 2022, I always have to think now, she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And that was a third opinion that found it. And she was like, Keisha, I know my body, something is wrong. So she told the last doctor, like, I want you to really look. And of course, in the medical and health field, when the doctors come in, they did testing and biopsies. And when they finally came in and said the stage, because they didn't say anything before, I like knew exactly. My mom knew because she was a nurse, and the tears just came out of my eyes like right away. And then she just stopped me. She's like, "Why are you crying?" She was like, "Don't you know the God that we serve?" And I was like, "Okay, yes." And so I've always taken notes from the first injury. Like my phone is notes, and I've symptoms, anything. I wrote down everything. And I realized that I wasn't the only one, especially sitting in waiting rooms. You see patients come with others. But I kept hearing people and the doctors saying they haven't seen a child like me that's there for every appointment. Like I refused to miss one. And if I did, it was one. And that was like hard enough. So from then, I realized God like wanted me to tell my story, especially when she beat stage 4 cancer, because that's rare as well too. And the things that I saw. And it also provided healing as I wrote about the different things. So some chapters I've heard that it's deep. You will need a box of tissue. But it's like as I was reliving it, I had to pause. So it did take me a while to write because I had to like sit with some of the chapters for like a few weeks before I could even pick it back up and then start another one again too.
Mm. So what I'm hearing, several things that I think is important to note is about the importance of when you have a loved one that's navigating the healthcare ecosystem, it's important that someone is there taking notes. I too am that same person. I remember my father had a stroke, and so I made an old school medical record with the tabs for the different specialties. And when they were coming in the room, I
Mhm.
literally was just writing notes and asking questions and really intentional about making sure that they were coordinating care, right? That the left knew what the right was doing. I personally think that helps you get better medical care because they know that you're watching, and not that you're watching because you want to sue later, right? It's literally about a being able to ask questions that your loved one may not think about. So becoming their advocate, becoming their voice, but also just holding everybody accountable, right?
Yes, even in the space of healthcare. So you said a few things. One, you do need someone, and not everyone has someone. And my mom had myself and my sister. Yes, she was pregnant at the time, so she couldn't necessarily be there, especially when the chemotherapy and stuff. But we tag team. But it's super important to take notes because you can miss a lot. It's a lot of heavy information that they're giving about signs and symptoms and treatments and how long and what you should take. And someone has to, sometimes it's going over your head. So you need someone else there to really sit and take notes. And I used to write essays in school, so this writing the book doesn't shock a lot of people. So one thing I'm going to do is take notes. And people always used to be like, "Hey, Keisha, can I borrow your notes?" So I'm going to take notes. I'm taking everything times. And at first, my mom thought I was like, why are you always bothering me about what happened? She wouldn't tell me some things. And I said, I never want you to go to the doctor and I'm hearing it first time in the doctor's office that something happened. Like, you need to tell me, you need to tell my sister. And then she realized, like, once I pulled out the notes, that I was really doing it for her sake. And then so she started to tell me. And so you're keeping notes, as you said, or a binder, that helps. It helps keep them accountable. Till this day, half of her doctors don't know what I do. I didn't want them to treat her any differently because of that, but they know someone was there and someone was present. And then she also doesn't tell people she's a nurse, but then when they ask her history, then it comes out. Or when she was doing chemo, she kind of pushed back her arm a little bit when the nurse is having a hard time, and the nurse knows. She was like, "Are you a nurse?" Because only a nurse would know how to, kind of do that for them to access it. So yes, we need that advocate. I would say one more thing. My mom gave me a card when she was finished treatment, and it said that one of the things is thank you for being a voice when I didn't have one. And mind you, this is a nurse that took care of people. But I think the fear of everything going on, sometimes she just couldn't process it. And then the concussion on top of that, too. So,
Hmm. I have a really good friend, Deborah, who was diagnosed with breast cancer during the pandemic, and she's a nurse, been a nurse for 40 years. And during her visits with the oncologist, she has a friend who is a physician who was on the phone during every visit. And, she talks about how even as a nurse, when you become the patient, you almost become paralyzed physically,
yes,
emotionally. And so you definitely need someone to be there for you. And the other thing that I will say, just from experience with last year, us navigating my grandfather when he got sick, and this is my HIM hat coming on. I like to educate everybody about the value of the patient portal, because in the patient portal, you can see, what tests were performed. And that's
if
your.
they give you the password,
Oh, no, no, you, you need to make sure.
you
Listen,
get the password.
with the password, yes, you need to get the password, or be a proxy on that person's account so that you can have access. And I'll just really share why, and then we'll continue with the book. Is that you are hearing words that you don't know what they mean, words, tests, and all of that. And so if you can, in between visits, go in my chart and
Mhm.
do a deep dive into everything that has happened, you can you can do your research,
Yes,
right? And so then the next visit, when they say XYZ, you'll be like, oh, now on the 26th, they had a such and such, and the note indicated that this needed to happen. And sometimes you jog their memory about something that needs to be done that got lost.
correct. Because you know how much, I mean, I've seen the waiting room. It is New York City. It's a whole block of a waiting room full of patients. So, yes, her doctors are amazing and remember everything, but some things they could forget because think about how many people they're seeing back to back. They're going to miss certain things. That's always when doctors don't sign notes on time. I'm like, did you really remember what happened 60 days ago? But that's another story.
Oh my gosh. I just told a group of physician assistant students, you need to document real time because you're going to forget.
You're going to, especially if you're seeing those patients back to back. So,
Mm-hmm.
having that checklist and checking the charts and making sure, because they could forget if there's appointments alerts, medications that they're supposed to stop and take. You need access to that. And so, you know, in the book, I talk about being the proxy and wills and stuff. And yeah, I am my mom's proxy and emergency contact. Like everything is in there. They know as soon as she doesn't answer, if she's away from her phone, my phone is ringing. Like they're calling me real time on the next line. So, and I love that coordinated care.
I love that as well. In everything that we do, you have to have community. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people try to navigate life independently. Sometimes they think they don't have someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be a family member. It can be a friend who is strong enough to handle it, is willing to, that can come step right in and be that advocate that you need to navigate the healthcare system.
Because it is complex. And as you said, even and nurses and doctors are the worst patients, the worst.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so now you're caring for a nurse. It's like, oh my goodness. It was times 100 with some of the stuff, but I realized that I was set apart for it. As hard as
Hmm.
some days may be, that this is God had chose me to take care of her, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. I still wouldn't. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. So let's talk a little bit about in the book, you talk about preparing for doctor's appointments. What would you share with our listening, viewing audience about that? Because believe it or not, there are so many of us that are in our age range that are navigating caring for parents as they get older. And you really do need to have a system that you can use to navigate that journey.
Yeah, so I would say a few things is medication list. If you don't have a medication list, you want to create one. If you have siblings, you put it on a shared drive where you're sharing, or a shared document where everyone is seeing it. But you always want to make sure you have the most current list of medication and vitamins. Because believe it or not, vitamins matter as well. Some of the medication they give can have some reaction or when it comes to the vitamins. So if you don't have a list, bring all the medication in a bag. They're okay with that too. I would say that's one of the biggest ones because you don't want them to now create a treatment plan and they didn't realize this patient was on this medication. If you have past history of certain events that took place, x-rays, MRIs, notes from other doctors, bring that as well too because that's also important. You never know when something may come about and they need to revert back to those notes, and that kind of helps bring them up to speed with where the patient's at and what has happened in the past. Also, insurance cards is the number one too. We need to know what insurance they are on. Each insurance is different, and I know you and I know about that because we teach about it. But because of care, what's covered, what's not covered, that's important. Certain things like the caps were not covered when it comes to chemo, and certain things you'll have to pay out of pocket. So understanding the insurances that they have, emergency contact, having a list of their pharmacy as well. Believe it or not, some people don't know their parents' pharmacy or stuff like that. So having the pharmacy list, the medication list, the insurance list, emergency contact, and then also a list of their doctors. Who's their primary care doctor? Who are their specialists? That coordinated care is super important, especially when you're dealing not just with cancer patients, but any patients that have chronic conditions. That is important to note. So I would say you could put that all down in a paper or somewhere where you can print it and update it, or the phone. Yes, as I said, my notes, it goes back to 2018 and before, and I can tell you everything that has taken place. And the pharmacy's number by heart. I don't know why.
Yes, I love that. And again, I cannot overemphasize this enough that when people in these different healthcare settings see that you are involved,
Hmm.
that actually helps make their job easier. I'll never forget. Um, I had made a decision like, okay, I'm going to go to the GYN's office, make an appointment for menopause, and I had a menopause diary, right? And so, of course, I'm extra. So I had typed it up. I had the different categories, medications, past history, all of that. But then I also had this like log of what I have been experiencing. And so, as soon as I sat down and we started to have the conversation, I literally was just like, and here's my diary. So then the GYN, she started looking through it. She was like, oh, it's on. She was like, you have done everything. You've given me all the things that I would have asked for that led to a faster path to resolving what symptoms I was having. Right. And so here we are a year later. I feel like $1 million because I I advocated for myself, but I also helped. I was prepared for that doctor's appointment.
Exactly. Because that's one of the first questions. What signs and symptoms are you having? How long has it been going on? And even if patients are going, like with the concussion, we were going for the migraine, the headaches, they were asking, like, yeah, how long? And then how many times a week or a day do you get it? What do you take? Does it work? Does it not work? So if you're noting all of that, it is moving things along faster when they're trying to do different testing to see what's going on with you to get to a definitive diagnosis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And let me just do a sidebar for a second because I'm all about giving people information. So, in addition to buying Keisha's book, guys, there's actually a physician that wrote this book called Patient Empowerment 101. And her whole book is about helping you navigate your encounters with providers. There's a shortage of healthcare providers today. The visits tend to move pretty fast. And if you can be one of those patients that's not in that office, long-winded, with all your facts together, your encounter will be better because they'll tell you, listen, let's just pick the top three. Well, if you haven't had an opportunity to organize your thoughts, you're just sitting there just rambling on, and it's just not a
Mhm.
good experience.
Yeah, and that reminds me, questions. Have write down your questions that you have for the doctor if you notice certain things. I remember one instance we had to take her to the emergency room because it was like some altered mental status. But I had noted when she started forgetting certain things, or when I walked in and the key was in the door, and I was like, wait a minute. And it's because I noticed that I was being able to bring it to their attention, and then it happened to be the emergency room we went to. She used to That's where she was used to work, and one of the attendings was like, "Hey, is that Miss Wilson?" He was like, "I know her." He was like, "That's not her." So he was able to validate exactly what I was saying. But if you have questions, if you notice something, bring it to their attention. Like you said, go through my chart, go through the note, and then write down the questions so you can bring it to the provider so they can ask. Because sometimes once they're out the door, like that's it. They're not getting behind that computer until like the night or the next day. If you have a question and you put it in the portal.
And you know what? Again, I'm extra. I have my little note, and I'll print it out, right? And just put my three little buckets, just because I don't want to leave the visit having forgot to address something that I really needed, because now I got to go into the patient portal and be like, oh, I forgot XYZ. Healthcare providers are so overwhelmed with just their day-to-day work, and I know people have different opinions about, well, they make XYZ, but actually, if you do the math with what they have to do, the journey that they're on, it's stressful.
Yeah, and they want to be compassionate. Like my mom's team, I love them. They come in, they give hugs, they shake hands, like they let us know that it was a team from the beginning. And so that may take a little longer, because they're building rapport and not just a checklist. Because you don't
Mhm.
want to feel like just a checklist either. Because then,
Yes.
that's not going to work. I switched her doctors before and I talked about it in the book. Like, but this is not working anymore. This doctor's not listening anymore. We need to go somewhere else.
I love that. I love that. So let's shift gears and talk about the emotional journey of the caregiver.
So that's a lot. It's not easy. You see things sometimes that others don't. And as a caregiver, you are now taking care of this person's everyday needs, depending on what's going on. So, from cooking, could be to dressing, showering, depending on where they're at, driver, you name it. And it can take a toll, especially if like it's someone who was independent like my mom and now you're depending on someone. That's not the easiest thing. You're not always their favorite person either at the moment, because now you're telling them, okay, no, I don't think you should do that, you shouldn't eat that, that's not good for you. And they're like, I'm an adult. But it can be taxing, it can be draining. I Support groups are the biggest, because you become overwhelmed sometimes with what you're seeing. You're trying to be strong for that person, which you are. So I was always strong in front of her, but there's times I had to step away to cry. Even while we're talking now, the last 3 weeks, we were still going through something recently where I had to take her to urgent care. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was almost like PTSD from 3 years ago, a little bit. and I had to take a moment and take a walk. So I had joined the support group, the caregiver support group, and I was so thankful that they had that. But I needed more. And so thank goodness for individual therapy where I can meet with her more frequent than that, because you're going through different emotions. You're happy, you're sad, you're upset. Why does this happen to this person? You see everyone kind of enjoying life and you're like, okay, wait a minute, what about me a little bit? But then I wouldn't change how my role. And so it can be, you can be anxious at times. I talk about the anxiety a little bit. Um, with stepping away, like taking a minute for myself. It was hard for me to learn to do that because I was always worried, is something going to happen to her if I leave? And I write about that. There's different instances where different things did happen, which heightened my nervousness to like leave the house, so it becomes emotionally taxing. So how do you deal with those emotions when they come about? Do you take it out on the person that you love? You don't want to, because they're already going through things, and you realize that how they're responding is not really to you, but to what's going on with them. And it has really nothing to do with you, but losing their independence. They feel like they're losing their beauty when they lose their hair and other stuff that's going on. So it can really take a toll. Some people become like a shell. And I think at one point I kind of did, and I wasn't talking to people as much, and I realized I had to. So when you said you didn't realize about what had all that had happened, I think for a while I didn't even know how to talk about it. But now I'm realizing that there's so many others like me that's been caregivers and still are in the caregiving space. And, you know, I needed to represent for us and kind of talk about what we go through, because I think even family and friends may not always realize as well too.
And you know what's so funny? My When I wrote my first book, my grandfather read the book. I think at the time he was 102. And he said, I learned a lot about you from reading that book. And I think we do such a good job of hiding parts of us.
Masking it, yeah.
And one of the things that I realized was that there were so many more people like me out there. I needed to be the brave one to tell my story so that I can help someone else. And I in the process went through a healing process because I was vulnerable to tell, enough to tell my story.
Yes, and that's why I told you it took me a while, because it didn't just start last year. Like, it started, writing this book started a few years ago, but I fought with, no, I don't want to tell people all of this. Like, do I even open up about the part where I see friends and family getting married, but you're still single because you chose to take care of the one you love? And that, and then you're getting older, you see your 20s, 30s, 40s pass, and you're like, okay, you know, people like, oh, you're not married, have kids yet? And it's like, no, I was taking care of my mom, but I didn't mind because I realized that she was my assignment, if that makes sense. I had someone in church. I used to be over like a kids ministry in church, and when she first got sick, I had to take a step back. And I never forget, the leader said, "That's okay, Keisha. God said your mom is your ministry right now. You need to make sure that she is healed and made whole, and then everything will be okay." And that was exactly what I did.
I love that. So let's talk about faith in particular. My former pastor, because he died, but his wife one day preached a sermon about trusting God even when you can't trace him. So
Mm.
in the book, you talk about trusting God in moments of uncertainty and fear. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say, I always say, it depends the week you talk to me. My middle name might be compliance, but I think faith. Um, Faith is like the biggest one. Faith is trusting in God when things may not seem at the moment how it is, or if it's going to work. And even going back to that day when they told us the diagnosis, and mom was like, but why are you crying? Like, you don't know the God that we serve. And that had to bring me back to faith. Yes, they're saying stage 4, but my faith is going to be that she's going to be healed. And I am someone who, I think anyone that's going to tell you, I am going to tell you to speak positive about our tongue and the power of the tongue and how we speak. And even though things sometimes didn't look that great, and maybe she lost weight, or, I'm calling them at 3 in the morning and saying, she's throwing up, this medication's not working, I had to have faith and believe that God was going to heal her. That He heard my prayers and He answered my prayers. So the woman that prayed over me and my sister as we grew up, I'm now turning around and having faith for both of us. And so that same card, she said, thank you for speaking up for me. Thank you for praying for me when I couldn't pray. She listed like a whole bunch of things, and I almost forgot about those things. So that mustard seed like faith. And when times got a little hard and I wasn't sure, I literally went back in the Bible and wrote out all the different verses on faith. Like, I had the book. I had to do that to remind myself of all the times that God had healed people in the Bible and that He came through, but He wanted us to have that faith. And I also realized sometimes when you go through things like this, like, so my family and friends were amazing. They wanted to help. Now, did I let them help in the beginning? No. That's another story. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, but I had to have that faith. Sometimes you don't hear from people. Sometimes you have no one else but God, and you have to have your faith has to be grounded in Him only, and that's where mine was and still is to this day. Even in the last 3 weeks, I was praying. I'm like, Lord, you healed her. I know you're gonna take us through whatever this is.
Mhm. See, that goes back to that message that she preached about trusting God even when you can't trace him. And
Yes,
sometimes you do feel like, God, I'm not, I don't feel that you are working things out on my behalf. But I think you have to think about like the grass. You plant, you put the seeds in the soil and you water it, and it doesn't always grow immediately. You have to allow it to go through the journey. But you have to continue doing what you are doing in the process. And I think that's the hard part.
and I like that. And I felt like my mom planted the seed because she's
Mhm.
always been that woman of faith. So we had no options. It was always church Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, we lived in church. And but I realized that seed that she planted, it came out then, because it was that
Mhm.
strength, that resilience, like everything that I saw her exemplify all those years now was in me, that I was able to now navigate this and take care of her. And this was like the same time as I was starting the business. So talk about stress. It wasn't easy, but again, I would never hesitate.
So let's talk about resources. What would you say your top three resources would be for support for caregivers?
Funny, I was about to say Google, but no, Google's one. And talking about resources too, so I'll just mention that too. So besides the book, I created a website which is By Her Side, Faithful Caregiver, and it I created as a page to be a resource to caregivers, where they can come and find resources to navigate their well-being, even list blog posts about different hard topics that we navigate that no one likes talking about. But I would say yes. I kid about Dr. Google a little bit, but sometimes we look up certain things on there. But I love, it depends. There's an association for everything. So if it's a cancer patient, you may want to hang out on those different websites. For the cancer websites, they provide different resources for caregivers, whether support group, individual therapy. They have different things, especially when it comes to Caregiver Awareness Month in November. There's so many things that are happening. Believe it or not, I like HHS website because it actually navigates a lot when it comes to healthcare. And telehealth was huge, and so we utilized that a lot. And even though I speak about it a lot, like she used it a lot. And we were in this place where I needed to get resources. And then also, I lived on CMS website because she has Medicare. And so we were navigating what is covered, what is non covered. Um, so I think those were my favorites. But then also Meals on Wheels.
Mm.
Um, your local, what's depends on what's in your area. I forgot to mention that too. So I do teach a patient care navigation course at a college. I had created that curriculum and I talk about this often because you mentioned it, bridging that gap between healthcare and the provider and that patient, because there's a lot that they don't know even though they're in healthcare. So yes, so a lot of the websites, those cancer.org, Alzheimer's Associations, .com, and I stalk those websites, I would say.
Hmm. I think sometimes when you are using Mr. Google, it can get a little overwhelming. And so, one of the things that I've started doing, because first of all, I grew up in an era where we had Encyclopedia Britannica, we didn't have the internet. So, with the internet, it can be overwhelming. And I think the first thing that I've learned to do is old school,
Mhm.
write out what resources am I looking for, then and why do I need it, right? So that I can prioritize what I'm going to look for first. And
Exactly.
then I always look for resources that are either connected to federal government website, connected to a healthcare system. So like Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, the Cancer Treatment Centers of America,
Yes.
just resources that I can just sit with.
Yes.
And it's 2026. A lot of these places also have YouTube videos where you can
You.
watch about the condition, care, resources. And so
YouTube University.
yes, YouTube University. It's way better than that Encyclopedia Britannica.
But when you said encyclopedia, I chuckled because we used to, when we grew up, we used to ask my mom, like, what does this mean? What is this? And she used to either spell out the word dictionary or encyclopedia. She wouldn't tell us, she would make us go look. And maybe that's why I love researching now because, yeah, she never gave us the answer.
Well, what she was doing, and as you get older, you realize the things that your parents did, good, bad, or different. But she unknowingly prepared you for today, but God knew.
Literally, she did.
Hmm.
Because I
Hmm.
still have old colleagues like Keisha. I'm not there with researching like you yet. Yeah, I can research with my eyes closed. But yes, that's exactly why. And I think I told her that. She's like, I did that. She's always like, I did that. I'm like, yeah, you did that.
Oh yeah, I hate to say this, but I can be watching TV and I hear a word. I'm gonna pause
Yes,
that TV so that I can look up that word because
yes,
I just want to know.
yes.
I want to know.
If we're not learning every day, you're not growing, you know?
Absolutely, you should learn something 365 days of the year.
Literally, yes.
Hmm. So, as we kind of wrap up, there's a couple of things I want to do. So, number one, what do you want readers to walk away with as a result of their purchase and subsequent reading of your book?
So one, um, I would say one, know your body. You are your biggest advocate besides the ones that's caring for you. If you know something is wrong, one, because we tend to go to providers. I'm a creature of habit, so if I find someone I love, I'm going to them forever. But if you feel like that healthcare provider is no longer listening to you, you have the choice to go to another provider. And it's time and time again, like my mom, her diagnosis, it was a third opinion that found it, and she was a nurse. And I keep hearing over and over about people passing away or different diagnoses being found out too late because their doctor didn't listen to them. So you need them to listen. You need your doctors to listen. You need the family members to believe you and trust that something is wrong and you know what's going on. Two, that as caregivers, you are not alone. I continuously realized, and that's when I realized I need to write this book. I kept running into caregivers everywhere, the train, the store, the coffee shop. And I realized I wasn't the only one navigating the space of sometimes feeling overwhelmed, having support but not having support, or not being able to know how to ask for help because you've been this independent person all along. So you want to do everything yourself, like cook the meals, wash, do this, and like, no, no, it's okay, I got it, because I didn't want to be a burden to someone else, but they want to help. So you don't have to do it alone. There is a community. We just have to ask for help. So I want you to ask for help, second opinions. I also want you to give yourself grace with navigating the emotions that come along with caregiving, but know that you are doing such an amazing job. It takes a lot. And I kept hearing different pastors and different preachers like telling me that I was set apart, but I never knew what set apart meant until I had to walk this path with my mom. And I realized, and she keeps reminding me, not everyone would do this, because I'll just jump. I'll leave everything. I'm like, I have one mom. I always say that we have one mom, so I'm going to do whatever for her. So I want you to know that you're not alone. You're seen, you're heard. Please give yourself grace. And the times you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay just to take like a 5-minute walk, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And my cup was very empty. You know, when you kettle kind of boils on the stove too long and then there's like no more water at all in the bottom. That was me at one point. So you don't want to get there. You want to do take a few minutes for yourself, because when you're better, the person you're caring for is also better.
Hmm. I love that. As a parent of a special needs daughter who's 34, I had to learn that if I bring her home, I can't bring her home when I just came off the road traveling, right? I need to bring her home when I'm in a relaxed state
Yeah.
so that I can better care for her and not be frustrated, because I know she's not going to go to sleep because she likes to stay up all day and night.
Yeah.
She doesn't require much sleep. And so I realized that I had to care for me first so that I can care for her.
Yes. And that would be like the best gift to them.
Mm.
Because you're showing up as your best self.
Yes. So, where can our listening, viewing audience find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Keisha Wilson. I know there's a few Keishas, but I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Same thing. It could be KW Advanced Consultant. Actually, there's a website for the book. On Instagram, it is Faithful Caregiver, and the website is By Her Side, a faithfulcaregiver.com, and the same thing as YouTube or KW Advanced Consultant. And I'll just link you over to the book. But yeah, hang out on the website. I also created a space where they can post conversations if it's a caregiver and they just want to, you know, vent about what they're going through. It's a space for us that I didn't necessarily see a few years ago, and I felt like we needed that.
Hmm. Wow. So, there was a blessing that came as a result of this journey that you hadn't anticipated.
No, not at all. I wouldn't have seen it at all. And when they read, they'll know. They know things even started before that concussion. And I'm someone who's taking care of my grandmother. I have an aunt that doesn't have kids, and I'm her beneficiary and everything. And I should have known. But there's a blessing in being obedient when God tells you to do something. And although I fought with him about this book, the feedback that I'm getting is I can see why. And I'm thankful that he chose me to write this book and put, what I saw into words. And
Mm.
to pour back to the woman that gave so much for us. I would say that. She loves my sister and I. So it was easy to
Mhm.
do that for her.
I tell my niece and nephew, Reagan and Gregory, all the time, honor your mother and your father. Your days will be long.
Yes.
I truly believe in that. And I know that a lot of younger people have don't necessarily have that foundation like we have. And I'm a little concerned for them. But I have to trust that God, who sits high and looks down low,
Yes,
knows exactly what he's doing.
exactly. Yes. And I'm hoping it would change. I think it will, and they won't be as selfish. But I know for me, when I do have kids, I'm going to raise them that the same way my mom raised us. So it's easy. They won't have to bat an eye if I need anything.
Yes, yes. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on 52 Authors, 52 Weeks. I always love it. I love all my guests, but I'm especially excited when I get to interact with authors who are in the same profession as me, because I get to see another side of you that um, sometimes is healthcare related, sometimes it's not, but I just applaud you for, first of all, being obedience. Obedience is better than sacrifice.
Yeah.
And writing your book so that the world can see it. And I wish you the best of luck with
Mhm.
um, your assignment, right? Because I realize that my assignment in life may not necessarily be directly tied to healthcare. And I'm okay with
Mhm.
that because when you are truly walking in your purpose, your walk is lighter.
Yeah,
It's
it
much
is. And I see he used what I do to be able to navigate certain things in the book, like the wills and knowing about, certain proxies and certain things that needed to be filled out. But last thing I'll say is that I also hope it's a blessing to others because I give verses and prayers. I close off each chapter with a prayer that has helped me. And so I just hope that that helps them too as well.
I love that. And there are lots of resources in the book.
Yes.
And one of the things I like about a book that has resources, right? When you're an author, you don't just throw stuff in the book, right? You're very intentional about what resources you provide. So that person who says, I'm just overwhelmed with the whole internet, well, you can just get the book and you can read the book, but also see the resources that are available to help you navigate your journey. And I
I
always
did the
say,
research for them.
yes, yes. And there may be someone who says, well, I don't need that book because I'm not going through that journey. We all go through some type of similar journey.
Yeah.
And just having the tools on your tool belt before you go through the journey is very helpful. That's why I count it a blessing
Yeah.
to be the creator and host of this podcast, because outside of my books that I'm reading, for my personal growth, I get to be exposed to all of these different resources that I can have on my tool belt and pull out anytime I need to.
And that's, yes. And I think that's important. And that helps equip us. You never know.
Yes, yes.
We thank you because you're introducing us to so many books that maybe we wouldn't have known about. And you just told me about one that um, I wrote down. I'm like, I'm going to look for it right as we finish.
Yes. My father told me when I was younger that there's a lot of information that we need to know in books. And as I've gotten older, I realize that he is correct about that. So
It
much
is.
information.
It is. That's where the information is. And we don't really pick up books anymore, but I do.
Hmm.
Besides
Hmm.
quoting books, I pick up
Yes. Well, and you know what? There's another author, or the one I told you about. He kind of has this, that legal balance thing that
books.
I have decreased my medical books and increased my
Yes.
non-medical book. And I realized that was the shift that I was going through, because I felt stuck being
Hmm.
in that one space. So I'm happy to have the right balance for me.
Yes, and that's what I'm doing too. Because I think I realized I was just so, oh, I read all day, so I don't want to read anything else. But finally, when I did open that book, I was like, ah, that's all was missing. And you become
Hmm.
addicted.
Yes, yes. Well, listen, everyone. First, I want to thank Keisha Wilson for stopping by with her book, By Her Side, A Daughter's Guide to Caregiving with Faith and Love. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of 52 Authors, 52 Weeks. And I hope everybody continues to stay safe.
Yes.
Thank you. You've just experienced another conversation from 52 Authors, 52 Weeks, Season 3. The conversation may pause here, but the growth continues. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator, and I'll see you next week.